Welcome back to the Underhand Free Throw. I am Simon. This is part 3 of our mock draft. If you didn't see the first 2 parts, those were uploaded on this YouTube channel during the last week, so make sure to check those out first. But in part 3 of our mock draft, we are foregoing the pick-by-pick analysis, and we're kind of just bouncing around the end of the first round, start of the second round here, and talking about some sleepers or players that we like that are still left on the board.
Let's fire off a few more. I've got at number 21 in our draft. I will take RAYAN Rupert. The
Rupert.
Rupert. He's French.
Frenchy.
I think people have recently been selling their stock because he's not very good in the New Zealand league. But people forget how bad LaMelo Ball was, and I think people don't understand that's a pretty good league. Mm-hmm. And I think you should look for young players to show flashes in that league, not statistically be good players. LaMelo was a kind of a joke in that league. He was shooting 27% from 3 and 31% overall, and it was just just showing. And he was given a big role where RAYAN Rupert is not quite as much. I didn't see the 7'3" wingspan. I see the potential as he shows all kinds of flashes. Sometimes I can't tell. Am I looking at a larger Frank Ntilikina, or is there something more than that? Because I think that's but even Ntilikina was able to be a really good NBA defender, and he's a lot taller and has already shown a little bit more touch on his drives and a little bit more as a pull-up shooter. So I think he's a player that could not pan out, or a player that will look stupid for later, taking players Jet Howard and Jalen Hood-Schifino over. I think he's got a lot of upside and just insane length. Is 7'3" wingspan's pretty crazy. He looks also really a very good nose for the ball kind of hungry player.
Yeah, him and Julian Phillips are right there with me as two very exciting wing defenders. I just trusted Julian Phillips' shot a little bit more. With RAYAN Rupert, it's all about how he develops offensively. He's not very good right now, but he's another one of these super young players. I think he's there with Gigi Jackson, as he's been 18 this last year. He'll be 19 next year. It's all about development with him. Okay, number 22, I will finally take Nick Smith. I'm going to do it.
Okay, yeah. That's actually next on my board as well. So,
yeah, he's another guy, one of those guys with a bag. Crazy scorer in high school, pretty good athlete. A lot of people were excited about just his skill level. In college, it hasn't been good. Arkansas has been really, really bad whenever he's on the floor, and significantly better whenever he's on the bench. His lack of playmaking is really concerning to me. He just kind of looks for his own shot most of the time. Not a very consistent three-point shooter. Doesn't have much interest in playing defense. But, has a good floater game, is really slithery, good at getting to the rim, and has a really nice handle, and has a little bit of size, too. He's he's 6'4". He's not tiny. I've heard him compared to Jamal Murray. I don't see the off-the-dribble jump shot, personally. But some people compare him that way. I just see him as, high-level, get-to-the-basket guy, kind of change the pace off the bench guard. I'm struggling to think of a great comparison for that. But, just someone who can come in, run the offense, put up points in bunches. Just probably don't expect him to do too much more than that.
I see a poor man CJ McCollum. I think CJ McCollum predicting a college ball handling scorer to be CJ McCollum is kind of the same thing as picking an undersized defender to be Draymond.
Yeah.
It's very rare that someone pops in that kind of archetype. The very best of the best of the best become that. I don't see enough in Nick Smith. These guys are struggling as scorers in college. What do we think is going to happen? You're going to get that NBA spacing and you're going to become unstoppable. I look for one thing when I look at these guards is how close are their defenders getting to them, and how much are they able to bother their shots at the college level? And if the answer is really close and really bothered, I'm that's not going to change in the NBA. It's not about having more space for that. Guys who want more space are the guys who get into crowds at the college level. Mm-hmm. Nick Smith operates on an island so often. It's a crowd of one out there, and that's just going to be someone bigger, faster, stronger in the NBA. I don't get it, but I'm so biased against these players that I often miss the one that does pop. So
yeah, I think there's some world in which he becomes like Jordan Clarkson, and if that's the case, you're really happy if you took him number 22.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I had him in the same spot on my draft board, so I'm not criticizing the pick at all. It's like, where do I got Nick Smith is 17, so he's actually fallen off from my draft board. I think we should probably wrap things up now. We've been drafting super hard right now. Do you want to just like list the rest of your first rounders? Just rail them off.
I mean, they're not overly different than most. I'll just list a couple of sleepers. The rest of the guys are the rest of the guys that you've heard about. Saidi Sissoko is a guy who's raising up a lot of boards right now, so I'm not going to go too much into him. Big wing who can shoot and handle a little bit. I like that. The only two guys I will mention that I haven't been seen talked about a lot is Trayvon Brazil, Arkansas prospect. He got hurt 9 games into the year. He's kind of like a 6'10" athlete who can do everything you want on a basketball court at least an okay level. Good defender, good athlete. He has a shot. He can handle the ball. He can kick the ball out to shooters. I just think it's perfect fit for the modern NBA, like the modern game. Just like this really toolsy 6'10" big off the bench that isn't going to hurt you offensively or defensively. And then the other guy I'm going to mention that I haven't seen much talk about is Azuolas Tubelis out of Arizona. Just really, really high IQ big man. He's a little bit undersized compared to what I thought he was. He's like 6'9", 6'10", in that range. So, not like a massive presence. But my comparison for him was like Mason Plumlee with significantly better touch around the basket. Which, that doesn't sound exciting, but like if you have a big who can hold up defensively, and the one thing Tubelis does is he really pushes the ball hard in transition. He's not afraid to start the break, and he has the passing ability to find players around him. So, and he is a net rating superstar in college basketball. He has the best net rating of any player on a contending team in college by a pretty significant margin. Arizona is incredible when he's on the floor and much worse when he's off of it. So.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know which of those like college skilled bigs that are somewhat lacking as NBA athletes. You never know which one of those are going to pop as well. It's because a little bit like the scoring guard. Like some of those guys find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that with him. I also had Trayvon Brazil on my list of players. I definitely wanted to mention this one. I also got James Nagy. I feel is like kind of lurking around as this sort of really strong monster athlete who's really young and already looks extremely competitive, playing at a decent level over in Europe. I think in the later part of the second round, if there's any teams, there's some teams with some extra draft picks that they might not want to roster. I can see James Nagy being one of the first players that someone might be interested in drafting and stashing. And just he's such a athletic beast and so strong, and just I just already dunking on a lot of people in a very competitive league. So I'm not sure about what his skill potential is there, but I like the base of the rollicking, rim rolling, quick footed on the perimeter defender. So I wouldn't see if James Nagy rose a little bit on draft night from where he's being projected right now. I think on the more American side of things, Noah Clowney.
I agree.
Just moves his feet really well, is showing enough of a 3-point shot where it's just this looks like an NBA level rotation player that's going to be useful and help unlock lineups. And I guess, I mean, I've got a couple of other players in this range, but none of them that have quite popped to me. I think I've been watching some Kobe Buffkin recently and thinking of swapping him in the Maxwell Lewis spot kind of thing. It's a deep draft once we get into this chunk of players. I feel there's a lot of potential really good NBA rotation players that it's hard to separate. Leonard Miller is another player I've been watching more of lately, and he's got some really awkward bad parts of his game, but he's he's huge. And he's huge, and he's making big strides in the and what I was saying before about this G League Ignite players being we expect them to be good and efficient against NBA level competition. And I think we should be more watching what are their tools, what are the things that could develop into high end things. And I think Leonard Miller is more interesting than some. I think people are writing him off because of some of the uglier parts of his game.
I just think he should be a 5 at the NBA level. He should not be a forward. He doesn't have the skill level to be one, and his I guess his plus athleticism and fluidity at the 5 position, if he can figure out how to be a smart defensive rotation player, like, I don't know, maybe there's a Nicholas Claxton hidden in there somewhere. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean he's a big boy. He's a big boy with like kind of uneven skills right now. So, but yeah, I mean we could unfortunately talk about this for too long. We already have gone on quite a bit. So thanks everyone for sticking with us.
Yeah, no, this was good. We had 5 bigs at the very end of the draft, but I think like
get those bigs in there.
End of the first round, that's where you want to pick just like a solid, kind of mainstay, low level starting big man, or like a good off the bench big man. You don't want to draft a big man unless he has like crazy upside, super high in the draft. Typically, these days. So.
Gonna just quickly recap at least what our top 20 was. We drafted Victor Wembanyama at 1, Brandon Miller at 2, Scoot Henderson at 3, Amen Thompson at 4, Asar Thompson at 5, Cam Whitmore at 6, Jarris Walker at 7, Anthony Black at 8, Grady Dick at 9, Chris Murray at 10, Taylor Hendricks at 11, Derek Lively at 12, Kaysen Wallace at 13, Bryce Sensabaugh, really like that name, at 14, rounding out the lottery. And then in the to fill out the top 20, we got Jalen Hood-Schifino, Gigi Jackson, Jet Howard, Keontae George, Maxwell Lewis, Julian Phillips, and then just outside the top 20, we had RAYAN Rupert and Nick Smith.
There is your top 22.
Yeah.
See how well we do when draft time comes up. I imagine we have a couple hot take, controversial picks. I would personally be pretty surprised if Chris Murray goes that high in reality. But, I think for the most part we did pretty well.
We're going to see a lot of these players. We're going to see some dramatic rise and falls, I think, in this draft, especially like March Madness is going to affect everything. Like big performers in March Madness are going to shoot people up the board. And then when we actually get in the pre-draft process, there's going to be these unexpected workout players that just sort of everyone becomes enamored with, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens.
Oh man, those small scoring guards are going to kill the workouts. They just like they hit 40 for 40 on 3-point shots, and the team owner's there, and he's like, I want that guy. It's like it happens. So it's sometimes actually better to like these earlier draft takes sometimes end up being a little bit stronger than some of the stuff that happens right before the draft, as people get like really enamored and the group think really focuses in on certain players and people start overthinking. And I think right now we're overthinking less because there's no stakes high. We'll do another one of these closer to the draft and we're
see
not
what
rooting
changed.
against Keontae George or Nick Smith. It's just I think the track record of the NBA, and most GMs have clued in on this, but the risk level for taking a guy like that is just higher than it is for taking a guy who's going to be a solid 3-and-D wing at minimum. Or solid defensive wing. Maybe you can give him a jump shot at minimum.
I always on my own big board, I always highlight players in green if I think that I like them too much, so I'm maybe getting biased. I highlight players in yellow if I'm like overthinking a player, and I highlight players in red if I'm like, I don't like this player. And if they're good, like this is just evidence that I was a little over biased on them. But I only have one player in red this
Brandon
year,
Miller.
No, I don't dislike Brandon Miller.
Okay.
Terquavion Smith is my only redded player so far.
In lockstep there.
Last year it was Jaden Hardy and Ochai Agbaji. The year before that it was Keon Johnson, James Bouknight, and Davion Mitchell. And I could go back forever, but it's nice to remember at least like where I was on players when the drafts, because some of those players end up being guys that I really like, and others like Marvin Bagley never change. My opinion never changes of them.
Yep. Okay, well, thanks for hanging in there with us during this long draft podcast, but hopefully it was entertaining. And thank you all for listening.
Yeah, when we here at the Underhand Free Throw, just kindly remind you to remember that ball is life.
We'll see you next time. Okay, that does it for our 3-part 2023 NBA mock draft. Thank you for watching. If you stuck with us through all 3 parts, I know that was very long. That was quite the trek. But we love doing it, and we're really excited to see how the draft actually plays out coming up here in the next couple of months after the NBA playoffs.